Thor Ragnarok review. Ow, I pinch myself. Yeah!
Hey, what's happening, guys? I am your host today, Chad, and this is my co-host,
Maple.
And today we're doing our review of Thor Ragnarok. So, Maple, tell the people, what do you think of Thor Ragnarok?
Actually, my favorite Thor movie so far.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. You want me to elaborate?
Yeah, why don't you elaborate? Why don't you give them a little bit? They've heard enough from me.
Initial thoughts, less serious, and more comedy. We didn't really introduce too many, we got a bulk of characters that we're familiar with, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
A couple new ones, but it didn't feel like they were, because I feel like the last Thor movies, they really used to introduce people.
Well, our main characters, we spent probably a little bit more time on the side characters and developing some of them. What's his face? Billy Butcher, the guy who ends up having to work for Hela. He's been around, so they kind of beef him up a little bit.
Right.
The guy with the dark eyes. And then, the big one is Hela. I think they spent a little less time kind of introducing a lot of new big cast members.
New big cast members, and that's what I'm saying. So we got to be a little bit more...
Because I think they wanted to beef up, I think, the relationship between Thor and Loki a bit more.
Loki, yes. And then we get Hulk back again, which is always nice to see Banner / Hulk.
You a Hulk fan?
I would like to be. I feel I need a little bit more on Hulk to make that decision. Mm-hmm. But I like Banner as a character. But I think that there's also, it's just, you feel kind of sad for him. That's all I have. It's just a little sad.
Yeah, you remember in the end of Ultron when he takes off, you're like, oh no, where's he going? Do you feel like they've kind of satisfied that question of...
In a weird way, yes. It's not what I was expecting. I wouldn't expect... Also, it's just kind of crazy that he was the Hulk for so long.
Yeah.
You were talking about the comic books. It's more of a nod to...
Yeah, Planet Hulk.
Planet Hulk. So that's interesting. Because I wouldn't have known that that's a comic. That's a whole story in and of itself.
Yeah, because it is just a nod.
Because I thought maybe they were doing something to him, which I guess, Jeff Goldblum kind of was by keeping him in a state of agony or just anger
right
or frustration and
but
fatigue.
It was also interesting to see that he got to the point where he can kind of have some chill as the Hulk.
Yeah.
Up to this point, he's always been a full-on rage monster if he's in Hulk mode.
Yeah, where this is he's kind of Thor, is bantering with him about how he's just a big child.
It's pretty unique that he was talking as much as he was too. The exception, I think, is just in Avengers maybe when he calls what's his face a puny god.
Yeah.
But almost the rest of the time, I don't think he does a whole lot of chatting while he's green.
What's his face? Puny god.
Loki. That's it.
Loki,
yeah,
and then Loki's that's how it feels when Hulk starts doing it to Thor when they're fighting. But yeah, otherwise, I really, really did enjoy this movie. I like the color. I like that they brought more humor back into it. It's not as serious as the other movies. And I put this at the top of my list for Phase 3 because I like Thor's character development.
Yeah, okay.
This has to be, to me, this seems to be my favorite character development so far.
Wow, okay.
In the shortest period of time.
Sure, okay.
Because they did it all, pretty much it just comes all within this one movie. Where Tony, is over a series of time, and even then he's still struggling, where Chris Hemsworth as Thor is realizing that he's so much more than just his hammer.
So yeah, let's delve into that. Do you want to kind of go through the process of that character growth that you think he does in this movie?
Yeah. I didn't really realize, which it is true, because what I see of Thor as a character is that he is more than his hammer, and he even goes the whole movie pretty much without it.
Right.
And it takes him up at the very end having a astral projection of his father.
Right. Or some spiritual thing or something.
Some spiritual experience, with Odin to realize, what does he say? The bigger picture. He tells him, you're not seeing the whole picture.
Well, I love the line specifically too, where he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, are you Thor, god of hammers?"
Yeah.
It's yeah, man, no, brother, you're the god of thunder, man.
Thunder, man.
Yeah.
Him realizing, that yes, He has that power within him, and whatever tool he uses just yields that power. Wields? What am I saying? Not yield. He's not yielding power, but controls or channels that power for him.
We got a similar thing going on with like Tony in episode 3 realizes that he's Iron Man, it's not the suit, and Spider-Man in episode 1 realizes that he's Spider-Man, it's not the suit. Like everyone kind of has to go through that.
Right, but it's almost, I don't know. Tony obviously has to realize, because he's more of a person, right? That he's more than the suit. And Spider-Man is Tony telling Spidey boy, you're more than your suit. Where this is him. It's
Odin telling him that he's more than
the suit. But Thor is a magical entity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Obviously, he's more than his hammer.
Yeah, right.
He's the god of thunder.
Yeah.
So to me, as a regular schmegula person, I'm like, yeah, of course you are. And it's insane that he doesn't see that in himself.
Yeah, he's still so insecure.
Yeah. He really is. So
which Spider-Man has a similar thing going on too, because he's also not a regular schmegular person. Like he can, kick people's heads off.
Yeah, radioactive Spidey.
Yeah, and he had to go and lift. I mean, because he has that scene where he's got to lift the rubble off of him, so it's not just something he's being told. Like he had to experience it as well. So yeah, it works. I think it's a formula that works for these people. It's like realizing that
Spider-Man was told though. I guess that's where I'm like, Spider-Man was told that before the most extreme things started happening to him. Thor had already kind of popped off a little bit. Yeah. Still didn't get it.
Right.
Has moved the whole movie without his hammer. Still doesn't understand it. Has fought crazy ass battles at this point, and only finally gets it at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everyone's got, like I said, everyone has their kind of false identity that they're insecure about, that they think like, oh, everything about me is like wrapped up in this thing, and they all kind of have to go through the spirit journey of realizing like, no, it's your heart, it's it's who you are inside, kind of thing. But it works, and it gives us a pretty consistently compelling story platform for these characters to grow, especially when you want to move them into like level 2,
right?
Like first, like past their first initial like just learning how to be a hero, then it's learning how to not fall on the crutches of that hero thing and learn that it was really, you had the magic inside of you the whole time. Spider-Man probably goes through that process the fastest, I guess, because it is in his first movie,
right?
But if you want to count Civil War, you could say that maybe that was him kind of like deciding to be a hero and go take on, Captain America and those guys. So yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about how you feel about some of them side characters. What do you think about Valkyrie and Korg? And
Valkyrie, she is a scrapper essentially, and she also adds some comedy. She kind of comes in just as comedic initially because she's stumbling, she's drunk, but she has this crazy ass ship. So obviously she kicks ass. Her and Loki have a moment where he forces her to remember her beginnings, and obviously Thor figures out sooner before Loki that she is part of, like she is an Asgardian, that it was her responsibility to defend the throne. And he was like, at this point it's not even about defending the throne, we just need to save these people. And I mean, obviously she has a change of heart and helps them escape.
So thematically with her character, I think what's interesting with her, she kind of represents this character who's given up because of the failure from before. So that's her false identity that she's living in.
And avoidance more so is how they paint it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just like, I'm just going to leave and I'm going to drink all the time and I'm just going to be a bounty hunter kind of scrapper person.
She says that, drink and die.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. So I think that's cool that they kind of play with that idea with one of them, and so she kind of gets brought back into the fold, and through Loki and Thor, she kind of learns to kind of believe again and kind of actually try again. So they kind of, reawaken that. So that's so I thought for having like a side character, it's cool that she just wasn't like Korg is kind of there just to be funny, but she actually had something going on, which I like about her. Yeah,
Korg is cute. Little Korg.
It was a fun way to get Taika Waititi in the movie.
Yeah. A little funny little rock.
So yeah, let's dig into Loki a little bit. What do you think about him, and like what, do you feel like he's undergone any kind of thematic interesting points in this movie? Is there any changes or anything with him?
I think one of the biggest changes is actually with Thor in his relationship with Loki, and being able to call Loki out and say, every time I have trusted you, it's the same cycle. You try to trick me. We do this again and again in circles around and around, telling his brother, you can't do this again. suck it, zap, and ditches him, right?
No, it's good because in other movies, it's basically been twice that he's like tried to trust Loki and Loki ends up stabbing him in the back. So now we get to see that not only has Thor undergone kind of a reboot because they like stylistically wanted to change his movies around because they weren't performing very well, but the character actually feels like he has done some growing up. Like this is the first time he kind of caught Loki ahead of time. So it's like, okay.
Right?
And Loki always believes that he's outsmarting everyone around him, and that ends up becoming a weakness for him because he leans on that, and Thor has actually grown up a little bit, and so he wasn't anticipating that, you know, Thor would catch him ahead of time. That was all good.
Yeah. And by the end, it leaves me questioning again if whether or not Loki, but it works out. It plays off well for Loki because he comes out, your savior is here. Okay, you know, give him his cake, but we got what we needed. So do your thing, whatever.
Yeah, he obviously still has that wound, which is that like I am looked over and my brother is the only one who gets all the love. And so even when he's trying to do the right thing, he still makes it this big grandiose thing, makes it about him. So like we haven't, but that's good though, because also like we're getting it in pieces. He doesn't need to turn into like this bastion of like goodness
out of nowhere,
because then you would be like bullshit. You would call BS on that, you know? So it's nice to see that, okay, he's still him and he's like
still
working on
holding his character. Yeah,
I think the serious moment that they had with him was when at the end, like I said, you know, Thor is like, you know, yeah, I'd hug you if you were actually here. And he's like, I am. And
here.
I think that moment is like, there's subtext to the I am. It's like not just physically I'm here, but it's like I'm here now. Like I'm on your team now. I'm with you, man. And I think that's really beautiful.
And it's probably nice for Loki to see that Thor was able to make a decision around Asgard and
a big one.
A huge decision to
bring out the end of the world.
bring forth Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And let it be what it is. And I think Loki probably as a character can learn something from that his home is not necessarily with the ice people or in Asgard even, as he's felt pulled from both areas, right?
As he can kind of make a home.
And that home will be where the people are. It's a people. Yeah, how they say it.
I asked you earlier, too, about how off camera, how did you feel like this movie felt kind of energy-wise and color-wise and stuff, kind of like Guardians?
It does.
And I think another thing that's interesting is thematically. I feel like Guardians also has a strong theme of like home is where the heart is and family are the people that you surround yourself with.
Exactly.
And so I think that's kind of an interesting thing to carry over to like the Thor characters because those guys' whole thing has always been about awkwardness with family.
Right. I think one of the bigger conversations too for Loki was when they're still trying to escape the planet and Thor is telling him, it's before they go to get into the ship, they're riding up, and he's telling him, this planet's perfect for you. It's chaotic, it's a mess, whatever it is, you know, but I think they have a sentimental moment where he's telling him that he just loves him as his brother. For me, I saw, that's where you get to see Loki again a little bit more open, a little bit more raw, but it's just through,
more vulnerable.
Through that, basically like the facial acting and his body language while he's standing there listening to Thor tell him this.
Well, and Thor's kind of probably giving him some reverse psychology too, you know, which again is a thing Thor would not have been able to do before.
Right.
Because he was just such a blunt instrument of just say what you mean, you know, when you say it or whatever.
Right.
And he's kind of learning about his own brother. I'm like, okay, I'll tell him what he professes to want to hear that I know he really doesn't actually want to hear.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, yeah, I guess we'll just go to the mall without you. Oh, fine.
I guess.
Okay. They left without me, you know, like, yeah.
But it's Thor reiterating again, I mourned you. I cried for you. I was upset. I thought you died.
And I think a little bit of like, I've tried, so it's kind of your turn, buddy, you know?
And him saying, at this point, this has been going on for so long that, guess you're right. Sounds good. So finally just accepting. And that's the thing. Loki as a character needs people to be able to play the part in his narrative, in whatever trickster move he's making. It's only fun for him if people are able to play along, whether or not they know it or not.
Yeah.
So Thor kind of shutting that down and being real with him and saying, yeah, guess you're right.
Yeah, he doesn't fit the part that he wants if he's not behaving how Loki predicts him to behave.
Right.
And so that kind of leads into the last point here, I guess, is that Hela, I think, is a very interesting foil for Loki, because I feel like as Loki is to the rest of the Asgardians of feeling like I have been left, behind and ignored, and you guys, wanted to make Thor the king, but no one even asked me. Hela now brings that same energy to, the same group. And I think Loki gets it to the max, and she's also like much more intimidating than him. And so I think he gets a chance to almost kind of reframe how he sees himself in relationship to it with how she did. And she's kind of like almost the worst version of like how he could turn into. So how'd you feel about Hela and how she was kind of handled in all this?
She's definitely insane. And very hot. Very hot character.
But did you not find her sympathetic at all? Like, I kind of got it. Like, obviously,
I understand she's been locked. She got locked away.
Yeah.
And her only release is that Odin dies.
Mm-hmm.
So she feels that she feels that she's doing something probably righteous and getting her vengeance and settling the score.
Mm-hmm.
And also, too, I'd be pissed, too, because to hide her away and make it seem like she never existed or that Odin he's portraying himself as something that he's actually not. He is, but he's not.
He's kind of changed.
He's changed.
So now he feels bad. So now he's,
Which, it would be interesting if they would have developed on that more, because no one was really upset that Odin had lied.
That's true. I do feel like in the first one, they kind of get into it a little bit too, where he's like, he conquered like Laufey and stuff. And now it seems like he kind of regrets like, trying to kill all the, because I think he saw himself as like a conqueror back then. And he seems like he's kind of chilled out in older age. And so now he kind of has regret for like effing up all the ice giants like he did and effing up all the elves and stuff like he did, So it kind of seems like that's been a theme they've played with a little bit.
And maybe that's why they try to pour out that lesson of a good king does not seek war.
Right. Yeah.
Because maybe that's his lesson that he's learned. So he's trying to teach Thor and all of them.
And now Hela's kind of a ghost from his past who's kind of reminding him of like, I know who you were because I was right there next to you.
She's the literal skeleton in the closet.
And then you changed your mind and then decided you were done with me, because I represented that old time period. So and
then she was discarded with her big old doggy.
Yeah. So it's sad because it's like, I don't, obviously condone she's a total biatch, but, like just like killing random people and all that stuff.
She
but I think
straight up wrecked everybody.
Yeah. But I think it made her a little bit more compelling. I also like the idea that she was as much of a threat as she was. Like Thor doesn't just go and beat her.
Yeah,
like,
I would not have. And he even admits, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't beat you.
Which I thought was sick. I thought that was because, we just do the same kind of things all the time. So this was a little bit more interesting of like, no, I had to bring about like Ragnarok to defeat her. And that was the only way.
Two problems for him.
Yeah, right.
Because what's his butt?
Yeah.
Tiara boy. Tiara demon. They call it a tiara.
Oh, you're talking about Surtur?
Surtur, yeah. Tiara demon, Surtur has to fulfill his prophecy in order to die. And it's funny because it's almost like he's like, I have to do this. Like, he's like sitting in his chair and he's like, no, like you can't really get rid of me. Like I have to fulfill my destiny.
It's fate. This is the prophecy. Yeah,
the prophecy, and I gotta do what I gotta do. So then it's funny that he gets to come back,
voiced by Mr. Krabs of all people, which is pretty funny. Yeah, dude, Clancy Brown, man. Or as I know him, the Kurgan, but that wouldn't mean much to
Mr. Krabs. Look at him, his little Mr. Krabs shirt. How funny. So, he fulfills the prophecy and she just gets obliterated.
Yeah, so I thought that was a cool way to finish off that character rather than just be like a fight. If it was just another fist fight, or if she summoned a bunch of, skeletons or something for him to have to beat up or whatever, and that was just all it was, it'd be like, okay, we get it. Like, ooh, another, Ultron problem. But it's like, no, that was actually a little bit creative, and I thought that was cool. So I think Taika, he brought something kind of creative and unique, vision-wise to this movie. And you can make comparisons to James Gunn's vision of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which might work out because you have two families of space. I wouldn't even know what you call them.
Yeah, they are. They're both more galactic. And to learn that lesson together, if they come back now to Earth, if everybody comes back to Earth, I wonder how that lesson will help them structure the bond between the Avengers. Right. Because it's always been
with Civil War, like having everybody kind of break up and off.
Ultron, they're all fighting.
Yeah, they're all
Avengers
fighting.
1, they're all fighting.
Fighting. Like, they're always...
After a while, it's like, grow up, everybody.
Yeah,
a bunch of goddamn adults.
Literally. They're always in some sort of dispute or turmoil within the group, even though they know that they're all supposed to be working together. So they can at least get stuff done. But now, I wonder, with the two groups that are more exterior to Earth coming back, having learned a similar lesson about family and unity, how will that bleed into the group?
All right, great. Then let's go ahead and get into the comments. All right, Randy Carreno says, for Thor Ragnarok, director Taika Waititi let the cast improvise some of the dialogue. He says 80%. That sounds insane, but I'm sure a big chunk of dialogue is improvised. I think that's interesting. Do you feel like because of that, it had a, what kind of answer do you think you're going to get from that? It's going to be like, exactly 80%. Oh, no, it says it right there.
Cheatsheet.com.
What kind of answer do you think you're going to get from that? Quotes the director's claim. Was improvised, making it much more with modern comedy film, right? So do you feel that the dialogue came across much more naturalistic because of the improvisation versus it all being written?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why the tone of the film didn't feel as serious, because I think that's something you talked to me about a little bit, was that, but to find that Chris Hemsworth might actually be not only hot, but funny as a person.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum, funny.
Yeah, I think so.
Funny guy.
Very unique kind of sense of humor.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of it is in the mannerisms.
Yeah, so... Yeah, he is funny. He's kind of like this, like... He's a personality.
He is. He's a whole mood by himself.
He's a mood by himself, so...
Yeah. He doesn't have to, like, have a setup and a payoff for a joke. It's just how he does things and says things is just in a funny way.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, it just shows that... They obviously were serious about taking a new direction with Thor as a character based on the person that they have casted for him,
right,
which is nice, because then I'm sure that allowed Chris Hemsworth to hopefully settle into the character a little bit more in this movie, which I do think you could feel. But that's insane that 80% of the dialogue was improvised.
Yeah, it means they would have mostly had just the structure of like, here's what happens in the scene, and you have to basically say this and then let them just like figure that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, if you can compare that to the last movie you saw and feel like, do you feel like the dialogue comes across really different in general of how people chose to speak versus it being like meticulously worked out by one person? Which is fun.
Yeah. And it's so funny because at the beginning I was like, this feels like The Office.
Okay.
When he's talking directly to the camera in the cage.
Yeah.
You know, and isn't The Office mainly...
It's a mockumentary style. I don't know. I don't know about all that. But I don't know. I'd have to look into that. That's interesting.
Because that's to me what it felt like. I thought that The Office was kind of mainly improvised, but
I couldn't.
Even at the beginning, it kind of feels like it's just off the. You're just. What would the word be? When you're just going off on a tangent.
Improvising.
Yeah, but there has to be another word for improvise. I don't know. Whatever. Improvised 80% of the time.
So one more little tidbit he had that I thought was really good is the scene where Thor is about to fight Hulk, his line, "He's a friend from work," was a suggestion from a Make-A-Wish kid that was visiting on the set. Chris Hemsworth loved it, and it was kept in the final film.
How cute.
Right?
I love that. He's a friend from work. That's so good.
That's really good.
Whoever that kid is, keep them around.
It's a Make-A-Wish kid, so...
Don't say that.
That's what they said.
Yeah,
That's the first thing I said.
They should just keep that kid for his ideas. Whatever.
I mean, yeah, they should, but there's normally a reason that you're a Make-A-Wish kid. Peter Babicki says, the director plays the character Korg, who is part of an elaborate rock, paper, scissors joke throughout the movie. He's made out of rock, and he's unable to start a revolution because he doesn't hand out enough paper pamphlets. And Korg later stomps on his friend who has scissors for hands.
Scissors for hands, and then he's holding him. And he's like, I stepped on him back in the bridge.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad. I've just been carrying him around this whole time.
Right.
And
He
then
thought he was dead.
and then he's like, he
Yeah,
like
and he's
wakes
not,
up,
yeah.
and he's not dead. And it's funny because he's supposed to be a rock, and the little guy's supposed to be scissors.
Right, so rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, he didn't hand out enough pamphlets and the paper pamphlets. It's a fun little circular joke there.
Joke. So dumb.
I
But
like
that's
that.
who on set's a dad? Is he a dad? Because that's a dad.
I don't know. He might
That
be.
is the most intense dad joke if I've ever heard one.
And it's like sneaky. You gotta like really think about it to catch that one.
God
Yeah.
dang it. And I didn't, I mean, it makes sense now. I see it now.
So this is something I told you before, but just so everyone knows that you know. Evan Hansen says, I feel like I know an Evan Hansen, but maybe not.
You should ask him.
Hey, do I know you?
Do I know you?
But the Grandmaster is the collector's brother. And so that's
Which
a big...
makes sense. They are both freaking weird.
Which I was going to say, you said that. Yeah, you said you feel like their energies are kind of similar.
Yeah, very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both very flamboyant.
Yeah.
It's like the clothes are flamboyant and the mannerisms, the way they talk, everything is very, you know, like the... that kind of stuff. Yeah, like they're just very, very out there. They seem like...
Also, how the Grandmaster is introduced to. He's in his chair, being dragged into the room, basically, and all the partying, and they make a joke about how his ship doesn't have any guns because it's for leisure. And like all of the orgies that it's just weird.
They're all worried about like the black light in there or whatever, how gross the place probably is.
Like, don't touch anything. Oh, and then it's
So-
like, it's my birthday.
Yeah. You just like press the button and it's the
It's my birthday. And he's like dancing, singing to himself. Little hologram.
So great. Yeah, one last thing on that note, since we're already there, is Minnesota Jones 261 says Jeff Goldblum's character in Ragnarok is the most Jeff Goldblum-y of any character he's ever played. It feels like the director just basically told him to play himself but dial it to 12. And I think most people who are familiar with him, that's what it feels like.
And I'm not that familiar with Jeff Goldblum, but...
I got to show you like some interview clips and stuff.
My God.
You know,
it'd be fun to hang out with him.
Oh, for sure. 100%. Did you ever watch, maybe a good one would be the Hot Ones episode. He has a great Hot Ones episode. Are you familiar with that interview show?
I am familiar with Hot Ones.
Yeah, so he did one. That might be a fun one because you get to see him.
I watched Bucky's...
Yeah, Sebastian
Stan's Hot Ones episode because I'm in love with Sebastian.
No, he's awesome. I think he's great. No, he's got a really cool energy off screen. Yeah, I should also play you sometime. His running joke is that he's always talking mad trash about Tom Holland, and so is Anthony Mackie, and so like Falcon and Bucky are constantly talking crap about Spider-Man, basically. And they just do every interview they have. They're like, "Oh yeah, did you go to the release or whatever?" He's like, "No, I didn't go because I don't like Tom Holland, so I didn't want to be there."
God,
it's just always like, "Yeah, he sucks. I hate that kid."
Man.
Like, well, first off, he's really talented. He's good at everything. I hate blah blah blah. Like, it's just super funny.
Which it's funny because Sebastian Stan is so from probably the age that he was Tom Holland's age, has always been a theater kid.
Yeah.
Seems like he was into all of this stuff. So that's funny. Because he's just, probably sees himself.
Well, Tom Holland is too, which is cool. He famously, I think his big thing was like Billy Jack when he started, which is like about a kid who wants to be a dancer and stuff. And so I think that also makes a lot of sense why he's so good at like the stunt work and stuff. It's because he has a dancing background. Yeah.
And even watching clips of him
behind the scenes and stuff.
Behind the scenes,
no, he's
it's
sick.
insane.
No, he's really sick. Dude.
He's so fluid.
Yeah. The kid's got it. Whatever it is.
Whatever that is.
He's got it.
Radioactive spider.
All right, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and turn around and watch Black Panther. So wish us luck.
Yay. 2 MCUs in one day.
That's it. All right. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye.